Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. We got an incredible guest today. This is the first person I'm bringing back for the second time. We had my mentor, Sharon Lechter, co-author Rich Dad Poor Dad, author of Think and Grow Rich for Women, financial advisor to 2 U.S. presidents, and the list goes on, folks. Just an incredible businesswoman. Welcome, Sharon Lechter. Welcome, Sharon. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be with you.
All right. Welcome. Honored to have you here again, Sharon. Appreciate it. And just a little backdrop to the story, folks. So Sharon is actually the reason I've done podcasts in the first place. As my mentor, I'd asked her one day, if she was ready for an interview, and she said yes. And I was like, I went home that week and I'm like, how can I make an opportunity, an extra opportunity out of this? And I'm like, oh, a podcast. So the birth of the podcast was actually born because Sharon's interview, she said yes. So very honored to have her here today. It's a special moment for me as well. So, all right, Sharon, so let's get started. I guess if you can give us a quick 30-second, maybe snapshot of your profile, just to give an overview of yourself, and then we'll get into your story as well.
All right. Well, I'm delighted to be with you. I'm very proud of what you've created and just thrilled with the progress that I'm seeing with your brand and the impact that you're making on others. So I just want to applaud you, Dr. Finance, and Tony, otherwise known as Tony. Very proud of you. And my background is just really, it's hard to do in 30 seconds because I've been around a long time, but I've been an entrepreneur since I was 25, did the traditional way through school, accounting degree, public accounting. And then I realized that I didn't like not being in control of my own time. And so I started a woman's magazine, sold that. I helped build the talking children's book industry around the world, that inventor of the first talking children's book. And then my oldest son got into credit card debt in college, and that was 1992. And that's when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial literacy. Fast forward a few years, I met Kiyosaki and we started with the Rich Dad Company. We wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad together, and that was the first of 15 books we wrote together. We were partners. I built the company. And 10 years after we were working together, I made the decision to leave. And that was when I was asked to be on the President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy. But I was also excited that I got the call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 19 in college, never realized the impact it would have on my life. And then I was asked to step into the Napoleon Hill Foundation in 2008. We know what happened to the economy that year, to help reinvigorate the teachings of Napoleon Hill. So I've written 4 books in cooperation with the foundation. And then my most recent book, Exit Rich, is with Inc. magazine and a co-author. And it talks about building the foundation to create a business and to build it so that it can create generational wealth.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, and you're right. I probably should have gave you 60 seconds for with all your accolades. So, all right, appreciate it. All right, so we're going to get into the story, but before we do, I just want to also remind everyone to definitely go check out that first interview. It's super cool. It's also historical insight on this podcast and the direction it's heading. If just to recall, we had talk about how to maneuver when the dragon enters the parade. Sharon had an electrical, blackout at that time, and all our electricity went out during the podcast. So she actually came back. She finished the interview from her cell phone, which was super cool. So that's probably why it got so many views. So just to see what happens, how you pivot to unforeseen circumstances, which is the tribute of a common entrepreneur, so a successful entrepreneur. So Sharon, going back, let's start with your story. We'll start with your childhood. Where were you originally from, and where did you grow up as well?
Well, I grew up in Florida, in Orlando. My dad retired from the Navy when I was 8, and so we moved to Orlando. And that was the beginning of me. We were in Washington, Great Lakes, Illinois for 5 years prior to that. But I think it's, from a standpoint of a childhood, I remember growing up in Florida. And so I was there till I graduated from college. And then I went to Atlanta. So most of my formative years were in Florida. And I lived in Orlando, but that was before Disney World. I was I actually was one of the grand marshals of the grand opening of Disney World because I was a senior in high school, and they chose seniors from each of the high schools in the community to represent as grand marshals. So I was one of those in December of 1971, long time ago. So
That's when Disney World opened, 71?
yeah,
I didn't know
December,
that.
yeah, December of 1971. Yeah.
Wow. Folks, you get to learn a lot on this show. I didn't realize it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Disney World and what it's become is an incredible success story. And you've got to be a part of all that. That's great.
Yep. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary at Disney World. So
Wow. So Sharon, I believe, did you say you grew up like, was it semi-farm area where you
yeah,
were at?
we lived in a really tiny house between my dad's used car lot and my mom's beauty shop. And it was very, very lower middle class. We owned rental properties that I had to go scrub out between tenants. We had orange groves that we owned that gave us cash flow from oranges. I swore I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be the sophisticated professional. Many of my friends or parents were CEOs or military officers, and neither one of my parents had high school degrees, and I was the first generation to go to college. My dad ended up being totally self-taught and teaching, the engineering school in the Navy. So he was a brilliant man, but did not have the typical degrees. And that was my goal. Their goal was their daughters would have college educations. And so the day I graduated from college was probably the only day I saw my dad emotional, and because it was the achievement of their goals. And I started my career in public accounting. I was one of the very first women in public accounting at a time. I was a pioneer. I think I was the fourth woman ever hired in the Southeast United States. And so I was definitely paving the way for other women. But it really was frustrating at the same time because it was new territory. And I remember my managing partner meeting with me and saying, Sharon, you qualify to be a manager, but it is so quick that we'll give you the money. We just can't give you the title because it's going to make the guys that we hired with you mad. And I'm going, you obviously don't know me very well, right? And that was one of the big signs that I wasn't in control of my own future and my own destiny. And then the other one was that I was working incredibly long hours. And I thought, you know what? My parents are a whole lot smarter than I thought they were, because they were entrepreneurs. They had the ability to choose what they did and when they did it. I said, that's much more attractive to me. So that's when I made the decision to leave public accounting. I had an offer with a client. He was buying a company out of bankruptcy, and that just started my career.
Thank you, Sharon. I want to step back for a moment. So your dad, did he sell used cars? Is that
Yes,
right?
he had he had a used car lot as well as a mechanic shop. So he helped repair people's cars as well.
Wow. So you actually have, because I know we're going to talk about some real estate stuff you're doing now later, but you actually have a car background as well as a real estate background, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's an interesting dynamic. Usually it's one or the other. Like, for real estate, for example, I could build you a house right now, but ask me to fix your car. I wouldn't know where each part was.
Before I could get my driver's license at the age of 16, I had to show my dad that I knew how to change the oil. Wow. And I knew how to change not one, but all four tires. So yes, definitely. I mean, in the cars we have today, that probably would never work. But yes, I had to be able to demonstrate the ability. And I had multiple cars because my dad had the used car lot. So he'd call me even when I was in college and say, Sharon, you need to bring that car back because I have a buyer for it. And so it was just interesting times.
Wow. No, that's a really unique skill set to have both of those, real estate and the cars, because I know a lot of people who fix cars or own car lots, and they don't know a thing about real estate. And going back to what I was saying earlier about like real estate, my position is very common to most people in real estate. They don't know anything about cars. It's like they pick one or the other, two different worlds. And when you have that Venn diagram, that little overlap of that, I think it's a really unique skill set. I find a lot of people successful who can put those two together. So I
Well, I
commend you.
learned it all from the inside out. My dad was brilliant, and he knew, he was the one that would get the phone calls in the middle of the night because the toilet overflowed or the hot water heater blew up. And he was brilliant. He had engineering background, mechanical background. He could fix anything. So, until he passed about 16 years ago, when he would come to visit, I always had to have a daddy do list because he wanted to be busy. He wanted to repair things.
Wow. How did your mom's side of the equation, her business,
Yeah,
the salon?
my mom owned a beauty shop and had several other people working for her. And she was just fabulous. She worked really hard. They worked together very well. My dad did the accounting for her, but she was the one running the shop. And I literally grew up inside the beauty shop because it was next door to the home we lived in. So it was great. It was great experience, great training. And certainly we understood the power of marketing, customer service, and the power of being your own boss.
Wow. So I never asked you these questions before, but I'm starting to see where you got a lot of your entrepreneurial stuff from, because you had 3 businesses technically going on as you were growing up. You had the beauty salon, you had the car business, and your dad had some real estate and doing a rental stuff, fixing, had the handyman stuff. So that's you had all 3 of those going on at the same time. So you're able to tap into 3 different industries and see how each one progressed and became successful.
That's true. And then when I went to Coopers and Lybrand for public accounting, I had the incredible opportunity to see how many businesses succeeded, and probably even more valuable, how many businesses didn't, and the things that they did wrong. So it was fantastic training to understand the ins and outs. But the overall piece of that, Tony, is assets. I grew up understanding the power of buying, building, and creating assets that generate income. And it wasn't until much later in life that I realized that people don't get that. They're not trained about that. They are trained to chase the dollar, exchange time for money, exchanging time for a paycheck. And it's like, it's not what you do for your paycheck that counts. It's what you do with your paycheck. And so that's why today I always, when I talk about assets are sexy, right? Assets. And you are financially free when the income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses. And people don't think along that line. That's why with real estate, you get enough real estate that's giving you passive cash flow each month that exceeds your living expenses, and you're financially free. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. And that's, the message when I met Robert Kiyosaki. He had 2 small apartment complexes. He was making $100,000 a year in passive income. And his living expenses were like $36,000. So he was financially free on $100,000. And that's the message I want people to hear, because you see all this fancy dancy stuff online about, these multimillionaires and billionaires, and you want to aspire to be that. Well, you can become financially free on a whole lot less than millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's like kind of like what The Millionaire Next Door, that book, the message of that book was saying. A lot of millionaires today, they're walking around in jeans and t-shirts because they're paying attention to all the bottom line stuff. When on the other hand, you have the poor surgeon. They have so much money coming in, but they're broke at the end of the year because they spent it all. So yeah, it's a great point, Sharon. So thank you. So going back, so then you have your college years, and you want to talk about those 4 years?
Certainly. Well, when I started college, I actually was on a dual track. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to go into genetics or into accounting. And so I was actually on a dual track, which was pretty crazy because it was, a lot of heavy classes in both directions. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I had been at the university between my junior and senior year in high school on a special National Science Foundation grant studying genetics, and I loved it. And so I continued on that track until the end of my sophomore year, when I made the decision to focus on accounting, primarily, the reason was genetics was going to be 6 to 7 years in school. Accounting was 4 years at that time. And I thought, I think I want to make some money. So I chose accounting. But
Wait a minute, I got to pause for a second. So you almost went the route completely different. You almost went to genetics,
mhm.
but you chose accounting, which is like the total opposite end instead of biology.
Well, science and math were always, of great interest to me, but
Okay.
math, was just a natural skill, and the accounting side was something that just felt natural to me. And I think it was one of the advanced physics classes that I went, I'm not sure this is for me, but it was the right decision, because I love what I do with accounting and supporting people creating financial security. And I may not have been in that direction if I'd gone into the biology side.
No, you obviously chose the right path. But question about like accounting, it could have been. So I'm thinking of the time when you were going to school. See, finance officially was born in 1950, but it didn't really get popular till like the early 60s, mid 60s, maybe even late 60s. Um, was finance around at that time? What were the options at that point when you were able to
Sure.
consider, like
Yeah.
accounting was
My
already
sister,
around?
yeah, my sister's 4 years older, and she majored in finance, but I majored in accounting, and I took a lot of finance classes. I was in college from 1972 to 1976. And I knew I wanted to become a CPA. So that was my goal. So I had to get my degree in accounting. But I also, the whole time I was in college, from my sophomore year on, I worked for the state auditor general's office to help from a standpoint of making money to live on, but also for that experience. So I had tremendous experience looking and understanding, doing the auditing for state agencies. And so it's something that the more experience you get, the more you kind of identify what you want to do with your own future.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. All right, so before we move on to post college, um, the idea that we were talking about earlier is really interesting, because I find that, like, and even in my own life, I grew up with entrepreneurial parents, particularly my dad. Like growing up with that environment, and because I had their slight success to give me more free time to study academics, I'm finding a similar pattern with yourself. Like your parents were very entrepreneurial. You get to witness that. That was like, the practical education of finance, right? The
Yeah.
entrepreneurialism. But because you didn't have so much of that pressure that your parents probably had at that time to pay the bills, you freed up a little bit of your time to do the education thing. Would you say that was really the combination package that differentiated you over your parents, for example, that gave you that extra push forward, kind of like my own situation, because they were so pressed for, survival needs. They had to work. They couldn't focus on going to school, things like that. Like my parents had similar situation, barely a high school education. So
Yeah, I mean, my dad was career Navy, so let's not forget that part. So when
okay,
he joined the Navy when he was 17, and so he was career Navy, and he retired from the Navy when he was 40 and moved to Florida. And he was master chief, so he did very well in the Navy, and in that he taught himself and helped run the engineering school up in Great Lakes. So absolutely brilliant. He just didn't have a piece of paper with a degree. And yeah, my mom, actually, I think she didn't have a high school diploma either, but both of them had GEDs and that type of thing. So, and when I was born and a couple of years old is when we were living in Chicago, and she went and got her cosmetology license to create a career for herself. And she did that until she retired. And it was something that they found great satisfaction and value in what they did. And constantly looking at ways to increase and build additional assets. Like I said, we got orange groves so we could get the cash flow from the oranges every year. We had rental properties where the tenants paid our rent, and continued to build. My dad continued to build their wealth that way while operating, businesses. And when he retired, he still had the real estate, and he still had the cash flow from the real estate, and he had the ability to sell those businesses at a profit. And so watching him do that was proof positive that if you want to create wealth in your life, it's not through working harder.
Mhm.
It's by working smarter and focusing on assets, buying, building, and creating assets. And that's something that I honestly did not realize that people didn't get that until I was well into my 30s. And I'm seeing people struggling all around me, and I'm going, well, what kind of assets do you have? And people just would look at me cross eyes, and they'd need more money, and they'd get a second job, or they try and work overtime. And I'm going, there's only so many hours in the day. Let's get a business or a rental property that works for you, so you don't have to be there all the time. So it was second nature to me, and I didn't realize that most people didn't get that.
And I sensed that you had an interesting struggle that happened later. I think you just mentioned that, like when you were in your 30s, your struggle was different. It was kind of like what was common sense to you're realizing was not common practice to the majority of the planet. And what did it feel like when that light bulb went off one day and said, wait a minute, I got a unique experience, a unique background of life that's very different than others, and I have to like reevaluate like myself and compared to other mindset out there when it comes to money.
Well, the biggest jolt was in 92 when my son went to college, and he left in September. And when he got to the university, he had tables of free pizza, free money, free t-shirt, free money. We had no idea this was going on, and he signed right up, and he had a really good time his first semester in college, and then came home at Christmas and told us he was in credit card debt, and he asked us to bail him out, and we refused to do that. Haven't always made the right parenting decisions, but that one we did. It took him 7 years to get out of debt and to get and repair his credit. But he's as passionate as I am about financial literacy today. And it's really, I was just livid that would happen. I was mad at him, but I was also mad at myself because I thought I had taught him about money. I just didn't realize he had credit cards. And it really was it was December of 1992. And that's when I really dedicated the rest of my career to financial literacy and financial education. So from a standpoint of a light bulb going off, it was probably that point in time, because that really was a turning point in my life.
Would you say that your experiences growing up, your childhood experiences with your parents teaching you to be, showing you all these entrepreneurial skills, did you use that same methodology that your parents, whether they did it directly or indirectly? In my case, it was probably a little bit of both. Did you use that same methodology for your children to teach them how to become as successful as you became from your parents?
Yeah, I started working at 15. I was a waitress, and the rule, and that was when we still had passbook saving books to go to the savings bank. And the rule was 50% of everything I made went into my savings account. And that was something that, when I graduated from college, I had like $25,000, $22,000 that I could start my life with. And I was pretty proud of that, because it was a long time building up. And I basically did the same thing with my kids with their jobs, 50%. But it was getting this easy credit and getting into that debt. It was something that we hadn't talked about. Credit cards. I love my credit cards. I have a bunch of them based on different cards for different companies. Helps me with my accounting, but I don't pay any interest. I pay them off every month. In fact, the credit card companies consider me deadbeat because they don't make money on me, but that's okay. And so it was a real eye opener to me that these kids were being solicited on campus. And so I was really proud later when I was on the President's Advisory Council for financial literacy that we supported the Credit Card Act of 2009, which now prohibits credit card companies from soliciting kids on college campus. I can't take credit for the bill, but I can certainly say I was a squeaky wheel on the financial advisory committee.
Wow. Thank you, Sharon. So Sharon, after college, if you want to sum up how you eventually wound up meeting Michael, one of the best intellectual property attorneys in the world, and then, from that point on, what was the next steps?
Sure. Well, I left, I moved to Atlanta in 1976 when I graduated. And when I when I had that meeting with my managing partner, about the same time I had a phone call from a client, and he told me, I'm buying a company out of bankruptcy, and I'd like for you to come with me, and you can be VP of finance, you can run it, you'll own a piece of it. And so I went back to my condo and did the old pros and cons, because this was before PCs, before cell phones, believe it or not, dinosaur days, and the old yellow legal pad. And I did pros and cons, and it really didn't help me a bit, because I could argue both sides. The accountant conservative side of my brain was telling me, you're a rising star in public accounting. Why would you walk away from that? The entrepreneur innovator side says, why not? Get going. Let's do something new. Let's do something different. And so I could argue both sides, but my hand actually took off and wrote across the top of the page, why not? And why not is kind of my mantra. It is my mantra even today. Why not do something different? Why not solve a problem? Why not serve a need? Why not take that path less traveled? And that really made the decision for me to leave with my client and go to the company that he was buying out of bankruptcy. The problem was, within a few short weeks, I discovered all kinds of corruption, and I was scared to death. I was 26. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my license. I remember leaving for a few days to just get my head straight, knowing I needed to leave and not knowing what the next steps were. And I came back, and because we bought the company out of bankruptcy, it had been in quite a bit of litigation. And while I was away, a bunch of lawyers showed up to do discovery in the lawsuit, and they realized I was out of town. So they waited for me to come back, and there were like 9 different defendants, and they selected one attorney to go through my office. So when I came back, this young man was sitting in my desk, in my desk chair, and we introduced ourselves, and it was an electric love at first sight. His name was Michael Lechter, and he was the lawyer. We were on opposite sides of a lawsuit, and it was January 11th, 1980, the night before my birthday. And we celebrated our 42nd year together just this last month. And we've been married 41 years. So 9 months later, we got married. And I had to train him. It took him 20 years, because most people will say, well, who won the lawsuit? And now he will say automatically that he won in more than one way. So, but it took a while to train him to say that, however. But yeah, it was, I often talk about Napoleon Hill's comment, out of every adversity comes a seed of an equal or greater benefit. My worst business decision, which was going to this company, because it was, found all that corruption, created my best life decision, which was meeting my husband. And so sometimes it takes us a while to figure out what the benefits are, but they're there. You just have to keep looking for it. So out of every adversity comes a seed of an equal or greater benefit. And boy, did I get my benefit by meeting my husband.
So you guys got married in 9 months of actually seeing each other for the first time?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we met January 11th. We were married on September 14th. Yeah.
Wow. Who would have knew when you started that year and you said, I'm going to wish myself a happy new year. Here's my wishes for the year, that would have been it by September.
For everybody out there that's single, I will tell you now, today it sounds kind of stupid because I was 25, but I felt like I was an old maid. And when I ran away for a few days to try and figure out what the next chapter looked like, because I was up in New Hampshire. I moved to New Hampshire from Atlanta for this company. So I didn't know anybody except the people that I worked with. And I was feeling pretty stupid, and it's like, okay, what's next? But during that process, I had also felt really lonely and felt that I was going to end up being an old maid and never get married. 25, I guess your mind goes crazy, but I made the decision while I was away that it's okay. I'll be all right. I can be okay. If I never get married, it still doesn't mean that I can't have a good life. And it was like that acceptance of being okay in my own skin. And literally within a week, I met my husband.
Wow.
And so I always tell people, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Just be accepting that, of who you are, be the best version of yourself, and your soulmate will find you.
This is a beautifully matched story for today, 2 days after Valentine's Day. So that's a great message for a lot of people out there right now. Well, thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. So just to summarize the rest of the story, so you had 3 kids, and then you want to tell us a little bit about what happened at that point?
Sure. Well, when I married Michael, he had 2 children. People don't know that because I'm there. I feel like I gave birth to them, but they were 5 and 2 when we met, and 5 and 3 when we got married. And they are the loves of my life. And we had a child ourselves in 1982. And so those 3 children, we have 4 grandchildren, 2 adult grandchildren, and 2 one 15-year-old grandson and a 4-year-old granddaughter who is just the light of my life. Both of them are. And we cherish our family. Our youngest son ended up leaving us in December of 2012. And it was devastating. And it really changed a lot about what was happening in my life. I went from playing a very big game to living life in neutral, in a world of numb. And it took me several years. In fact, I tell this, I share that I started to retire and got a lot of pushback from family and friends. And I think I even heard my son in my ear saying, "Get over it, Mom, there's more for you to do." And that's the message. When I made the decision to play big again, I launched the Facebook group, the Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter, which stands for being number 1 in your field, living your legacy, which is every heart you touch every day, and creating maximum impact. And I said, I'm not going to do this alone. If I'm going to play big again, I want to create a movement that other people can tie into. Because no matter what's, a lot of people, particularly the last couple of years, have had things that stop them in their tracks. Could have been a death, an illness, a financial setback, a divorce. And whatever you went through, you're still here, and you're still here for a reason. And what you've been through, you can help other people going through the same thing. Turn that mess in your life, whatever it was. Know that you're here and you've been through it, and you can help others going through it. Turn it into your message and support other people. But that's what I did. I decided to open my eyes again to the opportunities. And when I made that decision, after being kind of in neutral for a couple of years, is when opportunities are always there, but sometimes we put our own blinders on and hold ourselves back. But that's when I got asked to be in the Think Courage Legacy movie. I was highlighted in the World's Greatest Motivators television series. It was just incredible. And I think it's one step at a time, and understanding that you have every opportunity. You are perfect just the way you are. And you have the opportunity to help others along the way.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. All right, Sharon. So from your career, as you've been highlighting, is just amazing. So I think probably the best thing to do at this point is really to start tying into your later accomplishments into the questions that we're going to get into in just a moment. So the next big question, I guess, would be really just an overview of your books. So I want to pivot to talk about your books real quick. So with that said, I'm also a big fan. So folks, she's got tons of books. I'm just going to highlight a few of them. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter. This is the original #1 New York Times bestseller, which helped alleviate her, bring her to the highest level. But she already was a superstar before this book, as she said, with the talking books. Here's another one of my favorites, Outwitting the Devil with Napoleon Hill, like that one. And Sharon, I love this one, 3 Feet from Gold. That's really, really cool. But I think, and Sharon, hopefully you'll comment on this. I believe this is probably your favorite one at all. I'm thinking Grow Rich for a Woman with Napoleon Hill Foundation. She's actually the superstar author for that book, the main one. And then, of course, one of her latest ones was Exit Rich with Michelle Seiler Tucker. So, yeah, but if you want to, can you summarize maybe your books and anything you'd like to talk about and things like that?
Well, certainly. Yeah. Well, as I said, I started a woman's magazine and sold it. And then I started the Talking Children's book. And that gave me great education in publishing and manufacturing. We went from 1 million to 9 million to 23 million in our 4th year, on the way to 52 million in sales.
Wow.
But I learned a lot about building businesses and branding and the power of association. So we worked with little companies like Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street. And we did that because kids didn't have technology back then. And we had this new talking book with a sound strip that had, electric circuits in it. And so we said, how can we get parents to trust us? And we did that by aligning with companies they trusted, Disney, Warner Brothers, and Sesame Street. So I learned so much about building businesses as well as publishing. And so, when it came to the point where my son got into credit card debt, I said, I really need to use my expertise to help bring financial education. I started working with school systems. And I fast forward a few years, as you mentioned, my husband's an intellectual property attorney. He called me one day and Sharon, I met this guy today that has what you've been looking for. So especially when I'm speaking to women's groups, I go, what would you do if your husband called you and said, I met a man today that has what you've been looking for? Still remember where I was. I was driving down the street. Back then when cell phones were like this big and still wired into the car, going, okay, honey, tell me more. Sounds a little kinky. And he said, yeah, his name's Robert Kiyosaki. He came into my office with flip-flops, shorts, and a Hawaiian shirt with this idea for a board game drawn out on a piece of butcher block paper. And I went to the very first beta test of the cash flow game. And that's where I met Robert. And I was the only one that got out of the rat race. And it truly was drawn on butcher block paper. And the different players pieces were different caliber bullets. Quite a great first impression. And but I loved the game because it was so consistent with what I teach. We were saying the same thing. And I volunteered to help him commercialize the game based on my experience from the talking book industry. I had contacts and that type of thing. So we were able to help him commercialize it. And during that process, he told me he wanted to charge $200 for the game. And I said, well, that's kind of pricey. We're talking, 1996.
Wow.
Maybe you should write a brochure that shares the philosophy behind so people could get the brochure and then it'll encourage them to spend the $200 on the game. And that's when he asked me to be his partner and help him write that brochure. And that brochure was the book you just held up, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We never expected it to be a product in its own right. It was written to sell the game. And the world said, no. Rich Dad is your brand. And this book, we just exploded in popularity around the world. And people wanted more. And so our one book turned into 15 books that we wrote together during our 10-year working relationship. And we became a book company. But I was able to use all of my experience and all of my with the Talking Children's book and manufacturing to help us build that around the world, because we did things like work with Time Life when it came to infomercials, and Warner Books when the books became so popular. They helped us, be able to meet the demand. And it was an incredible experience to see people making decisions to improve their financial lives. And then 2007, I made the decision to leave Rich Dad because he wanted to go into franchising, which was a great model for us, but not for the franchisees. So I said, I couldn't be part of it. And I made the decision to leave. So you want me to keep going, or we're still talking books? And so
Yeah.
that was 15 books in the Rich Dad series.
Okay.
And while I was there, I actually started another series called the Rich Dad Advisors, where we had content providers, because most of what we wrote was contextual mindset stuff. And we wanted to dive deeper into specific content areas. So we did Rich Dad Advisors, we did books on incorporating, on taxes, on real estate, that type of thing, sales. So
How many books in total have you made or written?
that I've written 26 books.
Wow.
Yeah. But that doesn't include a bunch of the kids' books that I wrote back in the day. So
Well, all right. So I have to watch my wording. I'm learning this as I'm progressing through this mentorship program. How many books have you been published in?
oh. I can't even answer that, Tony. Probably,
Wow.
I've probably had my hands and fingers in well over 50 books. Been highlighted in many other books where I would be considered published in, where people have written about me. But that's my issue is always, what's the message? Usually I get mad about something and I write a book about it. That's kind of what happens. I want people to have the information that's accurate and can help them really take the next step in their lives to be successful.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, and I'm sure you're quoted in so many books you might not even know about, because when you get to a certain level, people are actually just taking pieces of your book to fill in their own book and stuff like that. So it goes exponential, I imagine, right? All right. Thank you, Sharon. Also, oh yeah, I forgot. I didn't bring it over here. I got the 13 Steps to Riches book. I wanted to show that. So you're in the 13 Steps to Riches book with myself. We're co-authors now, technically. But you're the celebrity author. So folks, there's 13 Steps to Riches in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book. And Eric Swanson made a book for each one of those steps. And Sharon is book 2, as you can see. So she's book 2 as an awesome book. And that basically goes over the second step to riches, which was faith. And yeah, Sharon, so any other collaboration books you were in as well? Or was that your first one?
Well, I have participated in some other books to help people along the way. In addition to the 4 books that I've done with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, I did a book with the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, where I had well over 100 CPAs contribute to that book. And so I put that together for the AICPA. And then there are other books that I've contributed chapters to. I don't usually participate in what I call pay to play books. I participate in 13 Steps to Riches because it's an important series related to the principles of Napoleon Hill, and want to support the people that are in that book. But I think it's really important to understand what the marketing plan is and what the distribution plan is, so that people contribute to something and want to make sure it's going to be successful.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, there is, and I'm learning that too. There's a lot of collaboration books out there that they're out there just for the money. And I'm trying to form my own collaboration book, but I agree with your philosophy. So I'm not going to do it until I get it right. It's got to be a good marketing plan to it and have a purpose. That's why I joined the 13 Steps to Riches too. But besides the fact you were in there, it just made so much sense. Like, it's the guy, he's got one of the best self-help books of all times. And it's a good way to pause and learn about each one of those steps and reread it one more time and see what this stage of life translates those words to be for myself. So, and I think for everyone probably feels the same way. But thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. Yeah. So check it out, folks. Check out all her books, the 13 Steps to Riches, and all the other books we talked about. Any other books you want to highlight, Sharon? And which one is your favorite, by the way, all the ones you wrote?
Well, I get asked that question a lot, Tony. It's like somebody asking you who's your favorite child. That they're all really important to
Yeah.
me. And certainly we didn't really discuss the individual books. 3 Feet from Gold was the very first book that I did with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. So it helped establish that relationship. And so I really cherish that opportunity. And the month we released that was when they reached out to me with the original manuscript about Winning the Devil. So I think from a standpoint of the most impactful book I've done with the foundation, it would be Outwitting the Devil, because it is life-changing. And then when that came out, we went forward on Think and Grow Rich for Women, and then Success in Something Greater. And so my relationship with the foundation is just fantastic. And I just love working with them. And I think every book has a season and a reason. I mean, it's really Outwitting the Devil is a great book for people who self-sabotage, get in their own way. They let fear keep them from realizing the success they deserve. Women, Thinking Grows for Women helps them understand how to find their own power, to stand in that power, and to surround themselves with other women that want them to succeed. 3 Feet from Gold is about perseverance and getting through the tough times. And so they all have specific messaging that will help people wherever they are. So it's hard for me to say what my favorites are.
Okay, that's a great response. I like that. Thank you, Sharon. All right, Sharon. So we've got about 15, let's see, 20 questions here. Figure about 1 to 2 minutes each if we can. We'll make some great time. What were some of your greatest struggles in your life that you have overcome?
Well, certainly losing my son. Nothing else matters. I mean, I used to get worried about things. I used to be stressed about things. And when you go through something like losing a child, we're not supposed to outlive our kids. None of that stuff matters anymore. I still remember I was speaking in Europe, and after I spoke, they did a Q&A, and they're supposed to ask me what was my biggest business mistake. And they said, or worst business thing, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you in business? And they didn't put the business part. And so it was the first time they said, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And so that was the first time I actually publicly talked about losing my child. And it was after that that I was inundated with, probably 200 people wanting to come tell their stories or give me a hug. And I realized how important it is to touch people in their hearts and to share. And so I think, that's a huge turning point for me. And I think it's really important to identify those things in your life that have deep meaning to you, and realize if you can share your heart, you're going to share, other people are going to be attracted to it.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. Sharon, initially, did you ever think that Rich Dad, Poor Dad would have reached the success that it did?
No, as I shared before, we wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad as a brochure to sell the game. And we printed 1,000 copies. And in fact, April this year will be our 25th anniversary of releasing Rich Dad Poor Dad. We released it right here in my home.
Wow.
And I still remember that we printed 1,000 copies. We had this launch party in my house. And so about a couple of weeks later, I got a phone call from some guy, and he says, I just read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I went, you did? And we had sent like 10 copies to one of Robert's friends in Austin, Texas, that owned a car wash on consignment. The guy wouldn't buy them, but this guy got his car wash, picked up the book, and he was a diamond in the Amway company. And he says to me, well, how many do you have on hand? I go, well, maybe 975, whatever we had left, maybe 950. And he said, I'll take them all. And so Amway was a huge benefactor to us in getting the message spread around the world. But really, the whole industry of network marketing is validated because we talk about the importance of building assets and building passive income. And our messaging aligns with being your own business, being in control of your own time. So that helped us. And so it really kicked off pretty quickly. I remember our first print run was 1,000, then 5,000, and then 20,000, and then 50,000. So we expanded. And it was 3 years later, because we actually published Rich Dad Poor Dad through my husband's company, Tech Press, and I owned a publishing company, and we published it. And then we couldn't meet the demand. And that's when I started looking at mainstream publishers, and Warner Books became our publisher. And we were still in the negotiation process when we got the call from Oprah. And it was like, holy cow. All right, we better have books in stores. And Warner Books believed in us so much, and we had such a high level of trust. They actually printed 350,000 copies and distributed into the stores before we actually had the signed contract. So
Wow.
I really have such tremendous faith and respect for them. And that's really what exploded. And I still remember we were at the Oprah show, and she came off stage to me and she said, well, that should be good for 1 million books. It was pretty funny. But
Wow.
yeah, we hit the lists on our own in January of that year in 2000. We hit the Wall Street Journal, Business Week at that time still had a bestseller list, New York Times, USA Today. And it was all organic, continuing to build around the world and doing interviews all the time. We hit all the lists, and we basically stayed on the New York Times list for over 7 years.
Wow. Sharon, if you don't mind, I'd like to just bring that Oprah thing again, because I've watched that video when Robert was there, and just watching the people in the stands. I think you're referring to that particular. It was the first time Robert was on stage at Oprah. That's the one you're talking about? Like the
With
people in the
Oprah,
stand.
yeah.
Yeah. They were just like, they were in awe at this book. Like they were just sitting there. It almost seems like the whole audience had their mouths wide open, like, wow. And so what actually transpired behind the scenes? Like, can you describe, first of all, being on Oprah, what that felt like in the presence, and like what was the feeling like, and just the whole atmosphere of Oprah?
Oh, well, you go through a entrance that's separate from the audience. And we went into the studio and talked to her executive producers. We didn't get a chance to speak to her beforehand. And we were in the front row, and they brought Robert up onto the stage, and then she came out and sat down. They started having conversation. She included the audience. And then when we were done on the interview, she walked off the stage and came over to say hi to me, and she left. It was very short and sweet from a standpoint of there was not a lot of behind the scenes conversation with her, but it was an incredible opportunity for us to be able to highlight the book.
So that's incredible. I mean, you combine that with the books that you sold with Amway, between Amway and then Oprah and a few other in between. Basically, those helped to rocket launch the book, would you say, right?
Well,
Like
understand back then, we're talking 1997, 98, Oprah was in 2000. There was no Amazon.
Right.
There was no internet. And so that we were truly a viral marketing success because people talking about us. And it wasn't just Amway. Amway was a huge supporter. Absolutely. I will always have my appreciation for them. But every network marketing company, every direct selling organization saw the value in the messaging, and because they were helping individuals create their own businesses. Mm-hmm. And so the messaging of Rich Dad Poor Dad was very supportive. So we really support the entire industry. And there's no doubt Amway helped explode us very quickly around the world, because we ended up in over 100 countries and over 50 languages.
So that just illustrates a key point, I think, the value of finding a whale, if you could, like a giant company that supports you, whatever it is. I mean, we're talking about books here, but it could be anything, right?
Well, it's what I teach, Tony, and you know that I have my personal success equation, personalsuccessequation.com. Mm-hmm. And it's about your passion and your talent. Most of us stop there. I think we have to do things on our own. But there's a times A, and that's the power of association. So I talk about how with talking books, I work with Disney, I worked with Warner Brothers, Sesame Street. Well, with Rich Dad, my power of association. We worked with Warner Books, we worked with Time Life on infomercial. We had the ability to have that association with Oprah. And that's how you truly grow. And, today in this world, I'm working, standing independent, but working alongside through powers of association with Grant Cardone Ventures. And it gives me with real success summits. All those things allow me to, I say 1 + 1 is 11, not 2. And that gives you the ability to exponentially grow your impact.
Beautiful point. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, Sharon. So what does it feel like to advise 2 U.S. presidents and write a book with a third?
Well, the two, yes, I had the incredible honor after I left Rich Dad. I got the phone call from President Bush asking me to be on the very first president's advisory council for financial literacy. And it was an incredible honor. And it really helped me establish my brand separate and apart from Rich Dad and give me that authority, reputation, and exposure. So it was a huge opportunity and working with both President Bush and Obama. And it was interesting because I was really the only true entrepreneur. Charles Schwab was on it, but it's been many years since he'd been an entrepreneur. He had a $1 billion company. So, but a lot of them were government officials, that type of thing. So I was definitely the lone voice for entrepreneurship, and I used it as strongly as I possibly could. And then we had, my term also covered the Obama years. And then I think you referenced the book. I wrote a book with Donald Trump before I became president, and Why We Want You to Be Rich, and had the opportunity to get to know him and his team. And it was just an incredible opportunity. Again, it's all about the power of association.
Why, going back to the point you made about you were the only one besides Charles Schwab, why do you think that is? Why, and this is what I find as a finance guy, I find it very frustrating. I see a lot of government officials that have these huge managerial roles, but they don't have a business background. They don't have an entrepreneurial background. And like, in my opinion, how can you lead a larger group of people if you can't even know how to run a business? So why is that possible? Why do you see a lot of that in government, where you have these people with all the power, but they don't even know how to run?
A lot of that, Tony, is because you're younger than I am. And so you're coming from where there's been more awareness of the power of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship was kind of a dirty word back, years and years ago. And people wanted you to go to school, get a good job, and become an employee. That's what school was designed for, right? Kindergarten is a garden of children, right? The whole public school system was created in the Germans to create employees, to train people. And so this whole concept of training people to be creative and innovative was not part of the original education system. And people that are in government, that have been government employees the whole time, don't necessarily have that same affinity to entrepreneurs. And maybe because they have no exposure, maybe they are sorry they didn't do it, so they're a little jealous of people, whatever it was. Most, when they talk about teaching money, all right, the powers that be think about the law of 72, compound interest. They don't think about assets, creating assets. They think about saving money, putting money in the stock market. They don't think about investing in real estate, building a business. And so that entrepreneurial mindset, I think, is one of the reasons why Rich Dad Poor Dad was so successful. Mm-hmm. And certainly Cash Flow Quadrant, the second book, where we talk about the mindset, brought home the reality to people, the difference between exchanging time for money as an employee, because it's not what you do for your paycheck, it's what you do with your paycheck that creates your financial future. And so we had to make, I still remember they did the very first little stimulus check, and I said, people should be able to use this to get out of debt, or and they, oh no, they wanted people to spend the money, spend it. I was like, oh, okay, all right. And so it's really interesting, the messaging that we get from the powers to be. They don't, the messaging is still not take control of your own life. It's really, stash it away in the bank. Well, look at the interest rate right now. That's not a good idea. It's not a good plan. So
Yeah, the irony of what you just said is it's not only find, you don't even find that just at the government level. As you're saying, I'm thinking, like, coming as a finance professor for 10 years, I noticed, so I didn't know the whole mindset space really until I met you. Before that, they trained me like to be a part of the academics, like, so the finance that I was taught, even as a financial planner before that, was really kind of like what you're saying, just looking at it from a saving standpoint, from an investment standpoint. But once you add the element of mindset in there, it transforms the conversation, and none of that is added to academia. Like, academia doesn't talk about none of this mindset stuff. They talk about William Sharp, Harry Markowitz, portfolio selection, diversification, all important stuff, but it's only one side of the picture. So, and I agree with you. I think what you did, yeah, when you added that, incorporated that mindset space, that looking at it from a historical perspective, from finance, that really was different, which was
well,
needed.
money's a very emotional subject. All right. People fear money. They fear they're never going to have enough. They fear they're going to lose it once they get it. And so if you don't address the mindset around money, it's hard for people to change their habits around money. I mean, you think about when you grow up, when you're a little kid, you hear things like money doesn't grow on trees, pinch your pennies, save for a rainy day. So you grew up hearing money negative, money negative, money negative. No wonder we developed a scarcity mindset. And until we face that and focus on that, we can't get past it. And so we talk about the cash flow quadrant, the left side, employee self-employed mentality is all about you working for money. You have to be present or you don't get paid. And that's what we're trained in school. Get a job, get a good salary. That's becoming an employee or self-employed person. And so the true wealth comes from becoming a business owner where you have other people working for you, other people's systems working for you. And then investing where your money is working for you. And the amount of money you can make as an employee, self-employed person is finite because there's only so many hours in the day, so many days in the week. Mm-hmm. But the amount of money you can make through owning businesses or having investments working for you is infinite. And that side of the cash flow quadrant is the asset side. Mm. Assets that generate income. And that's how you create financial independence.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. All right, Sharon, so we're going to pivot to talk about Clubhouse real quick. What do you think about Clubhouse? So just folks, as a reminder, if you haven't checked out Clubhouse, definitely check it out. Sharon introduced me there February 3rd last year. I just got my little red balloon, which was my happy anniversary to Clubhouse, my birthday there. So over a year now, and Clubhouse is pretty much changed my life. So I want to thank you publicly for that, Sharon, for introducing me to that. Created some of the biggest stages and had a lot of the biggest names on there, but it never would have happened without your nomination there. And at first, anybody else would have told me to go there, I would say, I just got too much going on. But you said it, and I said, all right, Sharon says I got to be here. Let me go check it out. And it worked. So Sharon, what's your thoughts on Clubhouse, and what are some of your favorite stages there as well?
Well, certainly the popularity of Clubhouse was fueled by rocket fuel with the fact that COVID was keeping us all at home. But it was really the power of association at work. You have the ability to build your personal brand. You have the ability, access to people that you might not otherwise have access to. And even for me, I have great dear friends I haven't talked to in a while. Well, on Clubhouse, we're in the same room. We can chat. We can catch up. So it's a real communication tool. It's an opportunity in the rooms like yours that are properly moderated. It's incredibly educational. Some rooms I go into are completely out of control, but it has the opportunity for great education, great experience, and great contact, a way to expand your network and find somebody that is an expert in what you need to know, what you need to learn, and you can reach out to them. So it's a great platform.
Thank you, Sharon. And okay, so moving on to the next question. What is your message for people struggling during the great pandemic depression? This time that we're experiencing right now, we're going into almost year 2 at the moment. Like what, so the last time I asked you a similar question, but now, almost a year later since we've done the interview, people's state of mind is slightly different. What is your message to them?
Well, you really have to figure out where you are financially before you can create a plan. So the first thing is to stop and take assessment and do an inventory of where you are financially. Even if the picture is bleak, you'll feel positive in the fact that you took the time to analyze where you are. We have a money mastery course that's like $1,500 on my website. Well, when the pandemic hit, I slashed the price down to under $100 because I felt people needed this information. And if you're interested in it, you can go to mm.sharonlechter.com. But my message to you is that it's never been easier to start a business. And certainly, even if you are at home in the pandemic, you can start an online business or become an affiliate, which is even easier. Find somebody you believe in and believe in their products and become an affiliate and start getting an affiliate commission. Now, that's not your own business per se. You're making money off someone else's, but it creates cash flow that can help you through difficult times. There's been a huge increase in entrepreneurship, and some of it's forced, the great resignation, they call it. But a lot of people are seeing the opportunity, more time on their hands so that they have the opportunity to do things that they've always wanted to do. And the increase in new listings for new businesses is astronomically higher than it was a couple of years ago. And so many of them will fail, but it's like put the stake in the ground, solve a problem, serve a need, and you can create financial success.
Wow, that is brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. All right, folks. So we're moving all along. We got an excellent interview here today with Sharon Lechter. So Sharon, what do you like to do for fun? We haven't really talked about that much. Now I know you got that cattle ranch out there, and I'm going to visit one of these days in Arizona. What's your favorite pastime?
Well, we love our ranch, cherrycreeklodge.com. We absolutely love it. We have business retreats out there that people can check into. Again, info@sharonlechter.com. We have one coming up in April. We have one in the spring and the fall every year. So no matter when you're listening to this, reach out to us. We can tell you when the next one is. And so we love this little piece of heaven for us. It's in the middle of the Tonto National Forest, totally off the grid. It's a survival property. So I know, Tony, you've talked to Mike a lot about that. And it's totally solar powered, our own well. And it's just, we raise cattle. We have Black Angus cattle there and lots of horses. So horseback riding. We have a beautiful lodge to enjoy the beauty of the national forest. And then, I love sunsets at the beach and the ocean. I love the ocean, something that's really important to me. And I'm an avid reader. And probably the top of the list is spending time with my grandchildren.
Is it warm where your ranch is? Because I know in Arizona, I mean, it's very different. Like you can go up to the mountain, like I think Flagstaff is cold half the year. Is where you're at, is that similar, or is that just completely?
Our
steamy?
elevation is at the ranch is about 5,000 feet, similar to Sedona, similar to Payson. And it is typically it's about 15 degrees cooler than the desert in Phoenix. And at night, 40 degrees cooler. So
Wow.
15 during the day, 40 at night. It's beautiful year round.
Yeah, that sounds like perfect, actually. Yeah. Wow. Awesome. And folks, definitely check out Michael Lechter's interview. He was interviewed here on the podcast. Awesome interview. It's the complementary, the yin and yang to the Sharon story. So definitely give that a check out when you get a chance. All right, Sharon, we're making good progress here. What is your personal success equation, and why is that important? Maybe a minute or so.
Sure. I started mentioning that earlier. Personal success equation is P+T, your passion and your talent. And that's, for me, my passion came from anger that we weren't teaching kids about money in school. My talent was years as a CPA and years in publishing. And we can combine that. Many of us feel that we stop there. We have to do it on our own. But the true power comes from times A, which is for the power of association. Who's on your team? Do you have people on your team who are strong where you are weak? Do you have those partners, those brand partners like Disney, like Warner Books, that help you get to the next level? Times A, taking action. How many times do we know what we're supposed to do? We just don't do it. So passion and talent times association times action. We actually almost went to press with the book 3 Feet from Gold with that formula. I said there was still something that was different when we talk about successful people and how they powered through the tough times, plus F. And that F is faith, having faith in yourself, having faith in what you're doing, having faith that is needed and necessary is so vitally important. And most people, that F is fear. It holds them back. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of old age, fear of loss of love, all of it. We talk about that in Outwitting the Devil, how to get past that fear. But I present the personal success equation in every speech I give and every mentoring client. And really the really important thing is, when I start with someone new, it's usually the power of association. Like I introduced you, Tony, to Clubhouse, power of association and the faith in themselves that need the most work. And they go hand in hand. The job of a mentor is to support you in finding new associations and having that confidence in yourself. And they go hand in hand to making sure you have the right people around you.
How many formulas do you have, Sharon? Because I noticed that you said it too. Every speech you always bring up the formula, but I read, reading some of your books, I see a formula. I don't know, is that the same formula or do you have other formulas? Is the formula you gave the main formula?
Well, the personal success equation is the main formula that I use when I speak to people, but there's other formulas. There's, when in valuation, if you read Exit Rich, I include formulas for valuation there. The cash flow quadrant is somewhat of a formula, looking at the ESBIs. So formula is really procrastination. We talk about getting rid of procrastination by having a goal and taking action. All right. And so there's formulas sprinkled around, but the primary one that is the driving is personal success equation. And if you go to personalsuccessequation.com, you'll see a free download. It's a worksheet of helping you walk through your own personal success equation.
Yeah, I think that's where I was getting confused with the Exit Rich one. There was, I think, 6 P's or something like that.
The 6 P's are basically the outline of Exit Rich. And those are really understanding that you've got people, you've got your products, you have your processes, your business systems, you have your proprietary, which is your intellectual property, your competitive advantage, your database. So all of those, and then you have your patrons, your customer base, your database, and then profits. And when one of these is out of line, it's usually related to one of the others. When your profits aren't where they want to be, where you want them to be, it's one of the other P's that you need to work on. So
now you did a lot of consulting. From what I've heard, that a lot of business or corporate consultants, they need to come up with some kind of formula. Is that where your formula originated from, like in order to be a better corporate consultant, or is it just something that just being an accountant background?
Well, it's, again, I told you I have my accounting side, which is what I've trained, and then I have my innovation side.
Right.
And so one of my superpowers is being able to take complex subjects and make them simple and easy to understand. And part of that process is being able to synthesize and create something that people can have that visual recognition and remember. So for kids, we teach in our kids programs, BFAB, standing for Be Fabulous, back straight, eye contact, firm handshake, ask questions, allow answers, and be bold. All right. So that's an acronym, BFAB, Be Fabulous. And we talk about my mantra, why not? Right. I have a daily motivational message, ATMs, abundance, tips, mentorship. And at the end of every single one of them, I say, you are fabulous. Say it with me. I am fabulous. Yes, you are. And so these are things that help build brand recognition and also trigger people to remember them. Assets are sexy, something I say all the time now too. So when I work with my clients, and I think you know this, I always ask, what are your isms? Tonyisms or Dr. Finance-isms? What are Sharonisms? Some of my Sharonisms are assets are sexy. Why not? You are the CEO of your life, right? Pay your family first. These are things that identify me, and they stand for who I am, my brand, my beliefs, my philosophy. So are they all formulas? No, but they are all indicators of what I stand for.
That's a great point. Thank you, Sharon. And actually, you mentioned a topic that I think you would want to talk about now. So what is your daily ATMs that you offer? Maybe 30 seconds on that.
Sure. When the pandemic hit, I was inundated with negativity, as I'm sure all of you were. And as I referenced earlier, when I get mad about something, I usually do something about it. And so, we turned off our news. We don't even watch the news anymore. And I said, people are just so inundated with negativity. I want to give them something positive every single morning. So I launch daily ATMs, a play on ATM deposit for the bank, right? You put your money in the ATM. Well, this is the ATM for your brain. Okay. It's, it's ATMs, abundance, tips, and mentorship. All right. We want you to be able to just start your day once a day to hear something good, something positive to help you keep your focus on productivity and positivity. And so I launched that, and I'm still doing, in fact, just before we got on this interview, I just recorded 15 or so of them. And it's my way of just giving back and sharing, the things. And it's very minimal charge, just cover the administration of it. It's like $8 a month or $88 a year. And it's something that if you want more information, go to atm.sharonlechter.com.
How long is each daily video?
It is a video. It's an audio message. You get it through email and through text, and they're anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes every morning.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't hear anything like that. It sounds unique.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else doing it. It's atm.com, atm.sharonlechter.com.
That's a great idea. And imagine you wake up every day and you got a great message from Sharon Lechter. So folks, check that out. That's ATMs. And we'll give you more info on that as we close out. So why are you so interested in real estate? And if you want to talk about your real estate course as well, maybe a minute or so.
Sure. Well, real estate is, the wealthiest people in the world either made their money in real estate or they hold their wealth in real estate. And as I shared early on in my story, at the age of 10, I was cleaning out and scrubbing bathrooms between tenants. So I've been a real estate investor since I was 10. And I understand the importance of owning real estate. Many financial planners talk about diversification. Well, when they talk about diversification of assets, they're talking about across paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. True diversification is across asset categories, businesses, real estate, paper. And so the best way to protect yourself from inflation is to understand how to truly diversify across asset categories. And certainly real estate is one of the best hedges against inflation when you buy it properly. And it's a very important part of investing. And I highly recommend everybody. And today it's never been easier to invest in real estate. You can invest in REITs, which is like buying a stock because it's on the market, or you can participate in syndications without a lot of upfront money. And it's never, as I said, it's never been easier, but you need to get started, take action, find a way to invest. And again, I'm just launching a real estate investing course that we're going to end up having online eventually, but right now it's going to be live and it begins next week, actually.
Wow.
So.
Okay, that's great. And we're going to get more info on the real estate course.
Yeah, that's sharonlechter.com/real estate. So.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. All right. And who are more important, accountants or financial planners or lawyers?
Is that a trick question? They're all very important. Financial planners, there are different kinds. There are those financial planners that are there to sell you something, or those that are there to help you determine your best course and your best message. And it's something that is, you need to understand your own money. You don't rely on someone else to make those decisions for you. And yes, you need attorneys in your life to make sure that you get things done correctly, that you have the good, solid agreements. And you definitely need accountants, bookkeepers and accountants and tax specialists, depending on where you are and how successful you are, to make sure that you're taking advantage of every opportunity to reduce taxes and to increase income.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon. Thought you'd have fun with that one. All right. Here's an important question that I'm still trying to figure out how to get answered. Should there be a Nobel Prize in finance? Well, I have the answer, but I'm working on it. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, yeah, I think there's some retooling that needs to be done in a lot of the Nobel Peace Prizes. I think it's not so much Nobel Peace Prize in finance, but maybe in financial contribution to the greater good. I think it's important for people to be recognized for the value that they create. My dad asked me every night growing up, have you added value to someone's life today? And so I think for people that have made tremendous significant contributions that have helped the economic world of individuals, help them elevate the financial well-being of humanity, that's the kind of prize I would think they would have.
Thank you, Sharon. And the reason that I was asked, and I'm sure you were, the Nobel Peace Prize right now, Nobel Prize is actually a Nobel Memorial Prize for economics. So there's 5 Nobel Prizes. Then you got this economic, 6 fingers standing out there, but it's a Nobel Memorial Prize, but it's economics, and all the major people in finance were actually given the award in economics, not finance. So finance, one of my arguments, this starting from my first book, Necessity of Finance, is that they're 2 completely different sciences, similar but different, and we need our own Nobel Prize to respect our people, the financial scientists and thought leaders as well. So, any commentary on it? Would you agree?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, one of the things, one of my biggest drives is getting personal finance taught in high school and in schools. And some states have a requirement for economics to be taught, which is fantastic, but that's not the same as personal finance. And so the part of the education process is to educate the legislators about the difference between teaching supply and demand and economics versus personal finance. And it's very important that personal finance is taught as well.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. Okay, so Sharon, we got a few questions. I think if we do about 30 seconds each, we can make pretty good time. What does the power of association, why does it work so effectively? Maybe 30 seconds or less. So
well, the power of association is the basis of all of my success, my entire career. It's surrounding yourself with the right people, seeking those opportunities, brand alignment, being of contribution. So that power of association is what gets you to, business is a team sport. You don't have to do it by yourself. And make sure you have people that are strong where you are weak, and you need to learn something, find somebody who knows it and hang out with them. That power of association not only creates opportunity, it creates life experience, it creates education.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, Sharon, we're going to get into some what became standardized questions since the initial days of the first podcast. Can one book change the world?
Well, one book has changed the world. I would start with the book, the Bible, and followed by Think and Grow Rich. And I certainly think Rich Dad Poor Dad has changed the world.
Yeah, I agree.
And I want Outwitting the Devil is changing the world today. So
that's awesome. It's awesome to hear this answer from someone who actually did it. Like most people are like, yeah, they'll name some books. Actually, they name your book a lot, the Rich Dad Poor Dad. But it's funny to hear from you directly. Yeah, my book changed the world. And you can't argue it. Most people are biased. They'll say, yeah, my book, but your book did. So thank you, Sharon. All right. What role has networking played in your life? Maybe 30 seconds.
Well, networking is a form of association. And so what happens is when I have clients or I see people that plateau in their life, it's because
Yeah.
they've stopped networking with new groups. Again, expanding that power of association. Networking is very important. I get energized when like this morning, I was in a Clubhouse room related to real estate. I was invited in to speak, and it's like, it's my juices going, because that networking of listening to various people, it triggers things and it gives you that energy. So networking is very important, particularly right now when COVID has kept us from being able to network in person. Clubhouse has provided that opportunity. And it's really important because it keeps you young when you're hanging out with other people and you're learning from them and you're being able to have shared experiences. It's very important.
That's a great point. Thank you, Sharon. All right. So as a follow through with that, you're going to love this question. Is mentoring important? And who were some of your mentors?
Mentoring is extremely important. And what I didn't finish saying in one of your prior questions, I realized later, is that, you know, when I made the decision to play big again and form the Facebook group, the Play Big movement, is when I actually started doing one-on-one mentoring. Because before then I was always focused on the right side of the quadrant, all right, one to many. And it was like, I just felt the need and desire to help individuals. And so I made the decision to start mentoring one-on-one. I don't take very many clients, but it also helped fill that hole in my heart from losing my son. It's not filled, it's still there, but it's, you know, a lot of my clients call me Mama Lechter, because I really, it helps me feel better about helping business owners get to the next level. And I think mentoring is exceptionally important. My greatest mentor was my father. Napoleon Hill was a mentor to me, and I never met him. Dale Carnegie. I have mentors that have helped me throughout my career. It allows you to speed your way to success when you have a mentor who's been there, done that. They can steer you around pitfalls and open doors of opportunity for you.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. And I got to add to that. Yeah, Sharon, I appreciate you being my mentor. You've definitely added a lot of value in my life. So I respect you dearly. Thank you. What are your favorite financial books? I feel funny asking you this question. What are your favorite financial books?
Well, my tongue-in-cheek answer is going to be all of them. You know, I think I love, obviously my own Think and Grow Rich is probably the most impactful book I ever read. I love Good to Great. You know, there's so many. I just, you know, I think every new financial book that comes out provides us with the opportunity to expand our knowledge.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sharon. Okay. All right. So do we need money to survive? Maybe 30 seconds.
Well, the world is based on finance. So you could probably try and become a pilgrim and go out into the wild and try and survive without money. But money is the basis of our economic society. And so, you know, I don't think your quality of life is important, and your quality of life today is based on money. So yes, we need money. We have money in our society. Everything is based about, you know, having lights, a roof over your head, having a vehicle to drive. So money is the basis, but when you focus on the money, you lose concept of the significance of life. And so if you do something that really solve a problem and serve a need, then you can see money coming to you because of the service that you're in. So the more you serve, the more you'll receive.
Thank you, Sharon. And even if you went out and bought a survival ranch in Arizona, you still need money to pay for the solar panels, the food that you're coming in, the cows, and the land itself, right?
That's correct.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, we only have a few more questions here. 4 more questions. Is finance necessary for everyone? I think it's an easy one for you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's, you know, we talk about finance and it talks about leverage and that type of thing. So the more you can educate yourself, the better decision you can make, and the more you can accelerate your wealth.
Thank you, Sharon. How important is having a purpose in business, and what is your purpose?
Well, the successful businesses solve a problem or serve a need. That's it. if you can remind yourself what problem you're solving, what need you're serving, that gives you your purpose. And your definite purpose is what you're building at. My definiteness of purpose was determined in December of 1992 when my son came home on credit card, that I dedicated the rest of my career to financial education, entrepreneurship education, and I'm as passionate about it today as I was back then.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, 2 more questions left. What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
Well, that's a very important question for me because I just turned 68. So that's a pretty important 10 years. And I continue every day remembering my dad's advice and question every night. Have you added value to someone's life today? I could retire. We've been financially free for many years, but I love what I do. So I don't consider it work. And as long as I feel I can make a contribution and support people and help them improve their lives, I'm going to continue doing it as long as I can.
So what do you think? More books, movies? Like what kind of projects you foresee?
I actually was speaking yesterday about one of the books I've written, and people want to make a movie out of it. I have 2 new book projects that are in process right now. I'm creating an online course and I'm continuing to speak. So all of those things I'm continuing to do.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sharon. All right. So last question. What would you like to be your legacy to this world?
Well, I actually, when I do my mentoring retreats with my mentoring clients, I talk about legacy, and I always take them through an exercise of imagine your magazine cover. That's a magazine cover with your face on it. And what do you want the tagline to be? And my team actually came up with one for me that I just love. I fell in love with it. My legacy is a legacy of creating legacies, which means, my legacy is I'm helping other people create theirs. So.
Wow. I like that. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate you again being here today. And we're going to close out now. So thank you, folks. You've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast with Sharon Lechter here. So Sharon, before we officially close out, though, I'd like to leave the floor to you to talk about anything you want, your books, your websites, where they can find more information about you. Sharon, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I invite everyone to connect with me. I'm Sharon at SharonLechter.com, but you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out, info at Sharon Lechter with any questions. Please visit my website, SharonLechter.com. Would love to hear from you. And remember, you are the CEO of your own life. And so we are all where we are today because of the choices we made before today. If you want something different out of life, you want something better, start making different choices. And we're here to support you and help you create the next best chapter of your life. And you deserve it because you're fabulous. So reach out. Let me hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. All right, folks, we're going to close out. You've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast, folks. My name is Dr. Anthony Criniti IV, also known as Dr. Finance. We got Sharon Lechter here, folks. This interview is going to go down in history. It's a great interview. Definitely check it out and subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. We got the website here in the window, drfinance.info. My 3 major books, if you want to check it out: The Necessity of Finance First, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance, The Survival of the Richest. And then The 13 Steps of Riches, of course, which I'm co-authoring with Sharon Lechter, and all of Sharon's books. Check that out. So follow, like, and subscribe. We'll see you on Clubhouse every Friday. We run the big stages over there. And we always got guest speakers like Sharon Lechter coming. So check it out. And thank you, folks. We'll see you on the next episode. Appreciate you all. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.